Hi there, so this is a response to your video that purports the Georgia Guidestones are the demonic plans of a secret New World Order. Firstly, I want to say that I just don't see why you think you're entitled to that assumption, this initial assumption that these are the work of the Bavarian Illuminati or whoever. There's just no evidence for that. If you look to the history, excuse me, if you look to the history of the Georgia Guidestones, which I've done a fair bit, it's just clear that we just do not know who put them there. They might have been done by wealthy ex-hippies or time travelers or benign aliens or the Bavarian Illuminati or whoever. But the point is, there is completely no connection with any answer to that question. So when you initially start off with your New World Order assumption, you just are corrupting the whole interpretation of the Guidestones, which doesn't get us very far. So let's actually go through and see what the Guidestones says in themselves, rather than with this initial malign New World Order assumption. Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Now, whatever way you look at this world, we have a population issue. We are currently at about 7 billion. By 2040, we're going to be at about 12 billion, perhaps. They're the outer estimates. It's not going to affect us that much, I think, in the West and in America, but in the third world, it's just going to be just this horrific mega slum of suffering, just maximum suffering to the maximum number of people. And you know, we need to take action against it. This was a UN Millennium Goal, although very little has been done about it. It's a huge issue. Now, the UN estimates, I think, put it down to 2.5 billion is the optimum population for the world. This is a fifth of that, but it's not saying let's get down to 500 million. It's saying maintain. There is no sense here that you can that you can read this as in any sense bad. It is not saying exterminate or deplete or eradicate, all these things that I've heard so many people say about the Georgia Guidestones. Maintain humanity. You know, that is an ideal. It's not one that is ever looking like we're going to meet, but it is an ideal. The idea that you could exterminate the population down to that is just ridiculous. If you look at these big pandemics in world history, such as the Spanish flu, you know, that killed hundreds of millions of people and yet just dented the population growth of the planet, if that. So it's just ridiculous, I think, to assume that is a bad precept, especially when you take it into consideration with the other precepts, such as, you know, those that are protecting people, those that are valuing fairness and beauty and all of the, you know, it's not a bad thing, I don't think. The second precept, guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. You know, this is in a sense, I believe, is an answer to the first question, which is how do we aim for this ideal of a sensible, reasonable population for the world, and that is just by family planning, by empowering women, by empowering countries and institutions to educate their women. It's not a bad thing to it's just to allow women to decide when to start and when to stop having kids. You know, that is what we all should be doing. It's not a bad thing. The third precept: unite humanity with a living new language. You misread it, or you interpreted this as being instantly this kind of Orwellian eradication of other languages and you know, force feeding whatever. I just don't see that. And my personal view, although I have no evidence for this, my personal view is that when these were conceived in like the 60s and 70s, the Guidestones, the emerging computer networks and the emerging information technology, you know, I think that is what they're referring to here. I think it's essentially talking about the internet, and you know, I think that's perhaps a better reading than your negative, draconian reading of it. The fourth precept: rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. That's not saying, you know, destroy these things. It is not saying eradicate passion, eradicate faith and tradition at all. It is saying there are going to be conflicts between different people's passions and traditions and faiths, and the way to address those conflicts is by using reason, and not just any kind of reason, not cold hard reason, but tempered reason that understands the different positions and works with them. I don't see why that's bad. The fifth precept: protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. That as you kind of initially said is is a good thing, but then you went on to read it to mean some kind of, you know, diabolic UN police state. I just don't see that. You know, protecting people is just a no-brainer. What else could that mean? And especially when you kind of like feed that back into your eugenicist interpretation of the first precept. Again, I don't see that is a bad thing. That is absolutely a good thing. We should be protecting people and nations with fair laws and just courts. Now, the sixth precept looks at the actual notion of a nation. It says, let all nations rule internally. Okay, so again, that seems completely in the other direction from a one world government, new world order. It is saying, you know, let nations look after themselves, and the next part of it says, let them resolve their external disputes in a world court. So clearly, if we have nations, there may well be external disputes. The way to resolve them is not by recall to some world government, not by military action, but let's have a world court that does them. What is bad about that? That's not a military or political thing. That's a legal thing to do with the right, fair ways to resolve these disputes. I don't see what's bad about that. The seventh one you liked at first, but then went to kind of like twist it into your negative view. Avoid petty laws and useless officials. You know, that's just absolutely true. We are subject to these huge, inefficient, bloated, dominating structures above us, and you know, they're ridiculous. We need to get rid of these bureaucracies that control us. That is not a bad thing. You know, I preferred your first interpretation of that. The eighth precept. Balance personal rights with social duties. You know, this since the time of the ancient Greeks, this equation between an individual's personal rights and his or her duty towards society has been the cornerstone of fair and just and well-working societies. It's not a bad thing to. Why would you see that as bad? I just don't get it. The ninth precept, that again you saw bad. Prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. So when you take it in the context of the previous 8 precepts, and then you look at this one, it is saying, you know, this is what we should be prizing. These are the things that are valuable within these national structures and these structures of law and dispute and population and things. What is important are these very human things: passion, truth, beauty, love. And you know, again, the ancient Greeks picked up on these: goodness, truth, beauty. These are the things that make us human and make human lives good, and they should be prized. And there is no kind of dogmatic assertion here about God or no God or Buddha or Allah or whoever. It is saying, you know, the ninth precept groups these just into this kind of abstract notion of seeking harmony with the infinite. What's bad about that? I just don't see that. And the 10th precept, again, you saw that bad. Be not a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature. That's just a no-brainer. You know, we are decimating this planet, and you know, we are a cancer on it in so many ways, and we need to adjust that. You know, the reasoned way is to adjust that. So look, I think you have really started off wanting these to be seen as bad, and you've kind of twisted them to see them as bad, when in fact there is no reason to see they are bad. And also, if you actually look at them and think about them in themselves, they are all good. I just don't see how any of them can really be faulted. So, you know, I long for a world that sticks to these, because it would be a better world than the one we're in now. That I very much believe in. Thank you very much.